Hi, um, it's me, the Hollow One, and I'm going to start a new book called The World of Lone Wolf, Book 1, Greystar the Wizard, by Ian Page and Joe Dever. It's not as fun just reading the book straight from cover to cover. So I'm just going to read it out loud, and if you want to listen in, cool. But this is how my version of the story goes. Of the coming of Greystar. Ancient days they were, when first the Chianti set foot upon the land that men called Magnamund. Long had they journeyed through the void, homeless wanderers in search of a place to call their own. And so it was that when the Chianti first looked upon the face of the land, their hearts were raised in wonder. They saw a world of nameless mountains, untamed forests, and lands both wild and free. Here they chose to cease their wanderings and to devote themselves to the study and appreciation of this newfound land. To the delight of the Chianti, the race of man first emerged at this time, and they watched his early struggle towards civilization with eager concern. Like gods, the Chianti seemed to the minds of primitive men. Tall and proud, shining with a radiance that spoke of magic and arcane mystery. The Chianti moved among them and with their powers of wizardry aided man in his development. As the centuries passed, man fell to worship of the magical Chianti, and the power of these wizards grew even stronger. With hungry hearts they sought to unlock the mysteries of knowledge, sending their minds into other planes of existence and strange worlds beyond the sphere of this material plane. Their foresight was now unmatched, and the power of their thought was mighty indeed. It was at this time that they created the Moonstone. Woven of the very fabric of the astral plane of Daziarn, this translucent gem was the greatest achievement of Chianti wisdom. It was the binding force of all Chianti magic, containing the combined might of all their wizardry, the sum of all their knowledge. The golden age of the Chianti had come. The Moonstone was the instrument of their dominion throughout all of Magnamund. Man stood as little more than a shadow, blinded by the shining white light of Chianti glory. But in creating the Moonstone, the unwritten laws of nature had been transgressed. For the Moonstone, like the Chianti themselves, was something outside of man's own world. It defied the natural order laid down by the creators of the earth and disrupted the balance that the gods had designed. The goddess Ishir, high priestess of the moon and mother of all men, showed herself to the Chianti and spoke to them of the destiny of man. The children of this world must claim their inheritance. Their time has come, and they must learn to stand alone. They are lost in the worship of you, and the day draws ever nearer when they will covet the power of the Moonstone. And the Chianti said, "Forgive us, great goddess, for we intended no harm. We love mankind, even as you do. We have sought to do good and protect your children from harm." But Ishir replied, "Of this there can be no doubt, but this world is not your realm. Man must be free to pursue his destiny alone, and you must leave, for you trespass on his domain." The Chianti were filled with sorrow. They feared a return to the void and to their lonely wandering, and pleaded with Ishir that she might allow them to remain. Ishir was filled with pity for them. She spoke again, saying, "If you are to remain, you must obey my command. You must take a vow never to interfere with mankind's fate. As a token of good faith, you must lay aside the Moonstone and return it to the plane where it belongs." Solemnly, the Chianti agreed. The vow was sworn before Ishir, and the Moonstone was returned to the Daziarn. The Chianti then moved south to the Isle of Lorn, They encircled their new home with a web of enchantments, magical mist, and mage winds to prevent man from ever finding their place of refuge in the Sea of Dreams. Knowledge of the Scianti faded with time, save in southern Magnamund, where it became enshrined in legend, and the worship of them endured. Priests of the Scianti religion preserved their teachings and patiently awaited the day when the Ancient Ones would return, bringing with them lasting peace and the blessing of a new golden age. 2,000 years strode by, and man advanced as Ishir had foretold. He built great cities and cultivated the land. His kingdoms rose and fell. He made war and loved and laughed and became master of his fate. But a new power was emerging in the province of Shidaki, where there's Shasarak, the evil witch king, ruled. The black necromancer commanded an army of brutal soldiers and had a devoted following of men who upheld his religion of demonic worship and sacrificial rites. Devotees of the Scianti and other religious cults were persecuted in a merciless purge. Ruthlessly, the Witch King destroyed all his opponents and began a terrible war with the peoples of the neighboring provinces. From the ruins of war, Shasarak shaped the Shadakine Empire, subjugating whole nations to his evil rule. And as the provinces fell to his might, the Scianti looked on helplessly, bound by their vow to the goddess Ishir never to interfere in the affairs of man. On the night of the crowning of Shasarak as overlord of the Shadakine Empire, a great storm broke upon the Sea of Dreams, a storm that raged with unnatural intensity. Lashed by wind and rain, illuminated by wild lightning, the waters heaved and danced in fury to the thundering music of the storm, unchecked by even the enchantments of the Scianti. When finally the tempest died, the Scianti looked out in amazement on the shattered hull of a ship drifting towards their shore. Never before had this occurred, for the enchantments and mage winds had kept them secure from the curiosity of man by forcing him to sail close to his own land. The Scianti went quickly to the ruined ship, where they found only one survivor, a baby. They perceived the sudden arrival of this human child as a sign of great portent, and they conceived a plan by which they might lawfully aid mankind. They named the orphan child Greystar, because a star is the symbol of hope in the Scianti faith, and because of the silver streak and the child's jet black hair. In the shadow of the wrath of the goddess Ishir, they raised the child as one of their own and taught him their secrets. Diligently they set about their instruction, for their aim was to provide a savior for mankind. Armed with the might of Scianti wizardry and wisdom, their hope was to create an adversary equal in power to the evil witch king of Shidaki, for they realized that only with the death of Shasarak would man once more be free to determine his destiny. Okay, so that's the introduction to it, and that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.